Well, welcome back to more tutorial sessions on the cost structure of the firm. In this video session, I'm going to be covering a number of topics. I'll probably break them up into smaller bits so that we don't have videos that go for a long period of time, but you'll be able to pick off maybe 10 or 15 minute sections. But what I want to cover in these next few videos, 2, 3, not more than 4 I hope, is this, the marginal cost formula. We talked about what marginal cost was last time. The fingerprint of the firm. We will review our profit maximization rule. We'll talk about the demand curve for the firm, the supply curve for the firm. We'll talk about economic profit and loss as it has to do with entry of new entrants into the market and what drives people out of the market and how that's different than the accounting profit and loss. Then we're going to talk about something that I've nicknamed the hardship of the free market, and then something that you're going to see on your test called the profit rectangle, and we could also say the loss rectangle. So all of these will be in at least 2, maybe 3 short sessions. And so as we get through these, if it's getting a little tedious, make sure you get up and get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee or something and come back and dive in again, and hopefully you'll be able to review these at your leisure. So let's jump in and talk about the first on our list of things to do today, and that's called marginal cost. As you remember, we had an average total cost curve, which is made up of average variable cost, which is this curve here, and the difference between the two would be our average fixed cost. Then we had a schedule here, and we worked through a schedule, and we derived the marginal cost. So the formula for the marginal cost would be the change, delta means change, in total cost divided by the change in quantity. And that's the formal equation for marginal cost. Next, let's go back to this again. This chart, schedule, graph here, if you will, is like a fingerprint for the firm. Everybody has fingerprints that are kind of alike in the sense that the FBI can categorize them and find them based on a group of similar characteristics, the swirl of the thumb or this dimension versus that dimension. So all fingerprints are alike in the sense that they can be categorized and filed. However, just like snowflakes, each fingerprint is different than every other fingerprint. And as we look at the cost structure of the firm and we diagram these costs, what we see is that each firm's cost structure will be similar to all the other firms out there, but it will also be different. What is the same and what we will always see is we will always see an average total cost, which is higher, more than the average variable cost for any output. Let's just pick one here. Call this output QX. At QX, what is our average total cost? We would go straight up till we hit the average total cost curve and come straight over to a number over here, and whatever dollar number is, we say, well, that would be the average total cost at that output. Similarly, what would be the average variable cost at that output? Well, we would go up until we hit the average variable cost, bounce off at 90 degrees, and get a number here which is less. We'd say, well, that is the average variable cost for that output QX. So one of the things that will always be constant, we said last time, is that the marginal cost curve will go through the very bottom of both the average total cost curve and the average variable cost curve. And we said that because marginal cost by definition means the very next one. It's kind of the thing that's going to happen into the future. So how much is it going to cost to produce one more unit, even though we've already expended the cost for fixed cost and all that sort of stuff? How much is going to cost for one more unit is different than what is the average cost of the next unit. They're different numbers. And that's why we said before when we asked the accountant, how much is it going to cost us to make this unit, next unit, we have to make sure that we're telling the accountant what we really want to know. Do we want to know the average cost of everything that we've made to date? Or are we only talking about the additional cost to produce one more because they're different numbers? At this output right here, the average total cost would be here, but the marginal cost would be up here, so it would be a higher number. So the fingerprint of the firm is that we always will see this kind of graph where we have the marginal cost going through the very bottom, that we always have economies of scale for both average total cost and average variable cost. At some point it bottoms out, and it bottoms out first for the marginal cost, and then second it bottoms out for the average variable cost, and third it bottoms out for the average total cost. So that is the fingerprint of the firm. They will all look like that, but they'll all be different based upon different quantities and different dollar amounts, and it will be stretched around and morphed in some way for each firm. So that takes care of the marginal cost formula, the fingerprint of the firm. Now let's review the profit maximization rule. The profit maximization rule. As you recall, we're saying, okay, we used to talk about elasticity of demand, and we said if we're the only ones making this product, and it's a new product, we can put whatever price we want on it. And we want to put a price on this product that will bring the most amount of revenue into our cash register. And we said, okay, we will pick the price where elasticity equals 1. That was called the revenue maximization rule. We're into now the cost structure of the firm where we're going to talk about the profit maximization rule, which this is a review now. Profit maximization rule says what output should we be at? Should we be at output here, or here, or here, or maybe out here? What output should we pick to get us the greatest amount of profit? Revenue minus cost gives us profit, hopefully if the revenue is greater than the cost. So where is it? Is it QX? Is it QA, QP, QC? What is this output in here that will give us the greatest amount of profit? It depends. It depends upon this thing called price. Now, with this structure here, we said that for some price level here, and I'll put this one in red, there is some price, and hopefully the price is above our average total cost, at least for some output. And we said we need to pick this output at which marginal cost, that's this curve right here, exactly equals marginal revenue. And we said that price and marginal revenue were the same thing. Okay, at what output here, where are we? Let's say we're right here. Let's say we're right here. Okay, if we're at this quantity right here, we go up to our marginal cost, and it's right here. But we go straight up to our marginal revenue, and it's clear up here. Well, clearly, they're not the same numbers. We're looking for the output at which they are exactly the same number. So we must continue to come over until we come to this output right here. I'll call it QZ. At QZ, if we go straight up, our marginal cost is exactly the same dollar number as our marginal revenue. So our profit maximization rule says we're going to pick, if we're smart, we're going to pick QZ. And we're going to tell the salespeople, we're going to tell everybody in the firm, we want to operate at this output. We don't want to operate at less than output because we won't make as much profit. And similarly, we don't want to get more business than that. We don't want to try to have triple time and overtime and all that sort of stuff and have everybody going crazy trying to meet our orders because we get really inefficient. We want to be right here at this output at which the marginal cost dollar amount exactly equals the marginal revenue dollar amount. And that's our profit maximization rule. Again, once we know that, if we don't get enough sales, we'll make less profit. But if we try to bite off more sales than that and produce more than that, we're going to make less profit as well. So this would be the sweet spot for this particular cost structure of the firm. Now, that was a review of the profit maximization rule. And I want to point out something here. We are not in control of the price. The market price for what we produce, it could go up. It could go down. And we like things when prices go up. So let's say we take, I'll have to extend my marginal cost curve here. Let's say that the price for our product goes up. Say it goes all the way up to here. Call it P, give me a number, PC, for the correct price. So for whatever reason, the market price goes all the way up to PC. What are we going to do in response to that increase in price? Well, we're going to say, well, wait a minute, the price has changed. The new point where the price, marginal revenue, equals marginal cost is up here. Therefore, we should increase our output. Okay, Mr. Salesman, you get out there and you sell more stuff. Get us more orders in here because we want to operate at this output right here, not at this old output back here. So as the price goes up, we want to produce more. Now, what happens if the opposite happens? What if the price begins to go down? The market price comes down to there. We'll call that PU. Yuck. It's going down. We don't like it when it goes down. Because when the price goes down, now this is our new marginal revenue. Our marginal revenue, which is our price, and we come over here until we hit our marginal cost curve, and we come straight down. And we're saying, okay, we're not going to go up in output. We're actually going to look to reduce our output. We don't want to produce that much. We're going to reduce our production, our volume, all the way back to, whoops, that went too far, all the way back to right here. Now, why do we want to produce less? Well, the price went down, and our profit maximization rule says we want to be at that output at which MC equals MR, and so we want to reduce our output. Why? Because, well, we're going to make more profit at that output than any other choice we could make. But do we like making less profit per unit times units? No, of course not. We want the price to be high. And we want as much profit as we possibly can. But given any particular price, it will be in our best interest to increase output or decrease output at the point so that this is true that MR equals MC. Okay. Now, let's go back to reality for a second. Now, what normally happens? Normally happens, let's say we're up here. We're up here at a high price, a marginal revenue up here. Well, at this high price, let me get rid of this number and go back so it just doesn't muddy the waters here. We said at this price, we want to come over till we hit the marginal cost curve, come straight down. We want to be at that Q optimal. That's where we want to produce at. We don't want to produce less at that price. We don't want to produce more for that price. And notice this is all dependent upon the existing size of our firm. In the short run, we can't change any of these curves. In the long run, we could buy a bigger factory, which would change the size of these curves all over the place. We talked about short run average total cost curve and long run in a previous section. But given the existing cost of the firm in the building we're in right now, we want to be right here. So this is our price. Let's just put some numbers on here just to make it more realistic. Let's say that we're selling this thing. The going price for our product is $1,000. And we're producing this amount. What's some amount? at that $1,000 price level. But, are we making any profit? Well, the difference between our price level and our average total cost. Our average total cost means that, yeah, we're making a profit margin per unit of the difference between these two numbers. We're going to come back to this in a second when we talk about the profit rectangle, because you see we've just made a rectangle here. We've got a profit margin per unit for each of these units. That's this dimension here. So we've got this dimension for how many units we're producing, this dimension for the profit margin per unit, and this would be our profit rectangle. Now let's come back and expand on that for a second, but that's not where I want to go exactly quite yet. I want you to notice that when the price goes up, we produce more. When the price goes down, we follow our profit maximization rule and we produce less. Where have we ever seen that concept before? Oh, this goes all the way back to that portion of our course when we talked about supply and demand. We said the law of supply said that when prices go up, producers tend to produce more. And when prices go down, producers tend to produce less. Well, that's exactly what we have here. So this portion of the curve, of our marginal cost curve, from here all the way up, is the firm's supply curve. Notice supply curves have a direct relationship between price and quantity. High price, people produce a lot. Low price, people will only produce a little. So there we have the marginal cost curve being the long-run supply curve for the firm. But what happens when people, someone, most people, can notice when somebody or some firm is making a nice profit? They see, wow, that firm or that person is making a nice profit. You know, I went to school with that guy, and he was in the same class as me. So if he can make big profits making those plastic little gadgets, well, he's not a genius. I bet I could buy a machine to make those plastic little gadgets as well. And so if he can do it and make a lot of money, then I should be able to do it and make a lot of money. And that brings in competition. When competition comes in, the equilibrium market price begins to come down. More competition drives the price down. They come into the market and say, hey, you like these little plastic gadgets? Well, buy from me. I'll sell you the same thing for less. And that drives the market price down. Now, as the market price comes down, of course, we don't like competitors coming in, stealing away our business. But as the market price comes down, we're going to restrict our output following the profit maximization rule. And we're going to follow that rule, even if it takes us all the way down here to a price level that gets all the way down to this point right here. From our prior lectures, we said that that is where the firm is not making any profit at all, because the price per unit is exactly the same as the average cost per unit. We're not making any money. But do we shut the plant down? You're all going to nod, no, we don't shut the plant down. Why? Because whoever's owning this thing is still getting a salary. People are happy, they're still getting their salaries. We paid for all of our fixed costs, we paid for all of our variable costs, and now we can kind of stay here and keep on going until we can find out some better option. But it could get worse than that. Some foreign competitor can continue to drive the price down even further. And once we get into this terrible, terrible situation where now we are following our cost maximization rule down our MC curve, but now at this output here, we're only getting a price of, let's call this some number here, but we know that price, whatever it is here, is less than our average total cost, and so now we've got a loss right here. We've got a quantity times a loss per unit. This is the quantity dimension times a loss per unit, and this would be a loss rectangle in here. So on a test, you would just look at the numbers here and say, okay, this is 10 and this is 8, so we're losing $2 per unit times 200 units, and we would figure out the dimension of that loss rectangle in there. Now, are we going to stop producing since we're taking a loss? And the answer from the previous lecture tutorial was no, we don't like it, but if we shut down, we're going to have to pay all of our fixed costs rather than only pay part of our fixed costs. As long as we stay in operation, operations will pay off all of our labor and all of our raw material, and it will pay off some of our average fixed cost, and we only have to come up out of pocket for the balance. And so this takes us to what is called the loss minimization rule. The profit maximization rule up here. How long can we take profits? Forever, forever. How long can we sustain losses? Ooh, until we run out of bank account. That's how long we can sustain losses. But to be able to stay in the game so we can figure out what we're going to do in the meantime, we want to reduce our losses as much as possible. So this would be the break-even point. And if that nasty competition continues to drive profits down further and further and further and further, we come to the plant shutdown price. Let's bring the price all the way back up again. When the price is up here, whoever's owning this firm is making a lot of money. They're probably buying a new car, setting it in the driveway, maybe a boat, put that in the driveway too. How about a pool in the back? And the neighbors begin to go, somebody's making a profit. It's kind of like having a barbecue on a nice spring day. You come home from work and somebody's got their barbie out and they're roasting some steaks here. I think it's time to go visit the neighbors and maybe get acquainted again after the long winter. The same way people in the industry can smell when somebody's making a profit, and that brings in competition. So when there are economic profits, it tends to bring people into a market. But if there's economic losses, it tends to drive people out of a market. So let's say it comes all the way down here to this price right here, and the firm's just barely breaking even, but it's paying the president who owns the place, it's paying him, I'm going to make up a number, let's say it's paying him $100,000 per year to run this particular company, not at a loss, but at break even. Notice what the free market is doing. The free market drives the price down and down and down and down and down. And do producers like that? Not at all. Producers don't like competition. They want to keep out competition. That's where we're going to be going in the next chapter in our text called Monopoly. They don't like that, but it happens. As long as there's a free market, people are allowed to come into a market, people are allowed to leave a market. So here he's going along. He's trying to figure out what he can do to increase his profit. And one of his competitors call up and say, hey, we're opening up a new plant in Southeast Asia, and we need a new manager for that operation. You know the market. You're good at it. Why don't you come work for us, and we'll pay you $180,000 plus living expenses if you'll come manage our entire Southeast Asia operation and just kind of give up your plant here. Well, Now, is he taking a loss? The accountant would say, no, man, you're not taking a loss. Look, you got to pay taxes on $100,000 you're making. Now, the company's not making any money, but you're making money, and you got to pay taxes, income taxes, on the amount of money you're making. And the guy's saying, no, I'm losing money on this company. The accountant says, no, you're not losing money. I'm just telling you, you better pay your taxes on your $100,000. You're going to be in deep trouble. You made a profit. Now, the company didn't make a profit. You made a profit, and you're going to have to pay income taxes on that. No. I'm thinking about selling this business because I'm losing money. And the accountant will say, how many times do I have to tell you? You have not lost money. You've made $100,000. And to prove it, if you don't pay taxes on $100,000, the IRS is going to get you. No, I've lost $80,000 by running this company. $80,000 in economic loss, not accounting loss. His opportunity cost to continue to run his firm is the difference between what he could have made and what he did make. So he gave up $80,000 to continue to run his company at a break-even, no loss. So what's he probably going to do? I think I want to sell this company because I'm taking an economic loss. The company's not, but I am, because I have an offer for $180,000 to go Southeast Asia and have fun over there. So for him to be more profitable, he has to sell this company at which he personally is taking a loss. Economic losses drive him out of this business. At the same time, one of his employees are saying, "Boss, I hear you're thinking about selling the business." "Yeah, I think about selling the business. I got an offer, Southeast Asia, to run XYZ subsidiary for that company, and they offered me a bit more, and I'd like to take the family and move to a different area, and so I think I'm going to take that job." "Well, if you're going to sell it, I'd be more than happy to buy it, because you see, you're only paying me $60,000 per year. But if I bought this business, I could make at least $100,000 per year." So one person wants to come into this market in order to increase their economic profit, while the very same other person, the existing owner, wants to leave because of an economic loss. For this person, it would be an economic gain. For this person, it's an economic loss. And the free market just kind of handles that. So this person wants to move into the market because it's beneficial for them. The other person wants to drive out of the market because he's taking a loss. Let's just stop right there and take a break, and then I'll finish up these last two sections here in a short, maybe 5-minute section, because this one seems to be going a little bit long.